If you've been feeling a little lost and disconnected lately, I want this video to be a soft place for you to land. I'm also feeling that way. I'm Jessica. This is Dolly. She's a special guest today. But this is Ordinary Shrines, my digital altar of sorts. I'm inviting you guys along for my journey back to coming home to myself, as you could say. I find that I feel this way at the end of summer often. Such a busy season with a lot of go, and I guess the heat gets to me. I really need a process to get back to feel, grounded for fall. I hope that if you're feeling like I feel, this can serve as something to give you a little guidance. It's about going and making sure that the pilot light that is going to keep you going is still on. To clarify, I am not a mental health professional. I'm just a woman who has rebuilt my life a number of times in my short 30 years, learned to notice patterns in my own behavior of other people, the world around me, and I've kind of got down like a pretty streamlined process for getting that forward momentum going again and feeling back in touch with myself. Exercises like these are not only important for preventing burnout, like super severe burnout, but also for just building a life that actually makes you feel fulfilled. I think when you don't check in with yourself, that's when you realize you've like floated way off the path, Here we go. It's time to romance the situation a little bit. When I find myself in this mood, I tend to, be putting much less effort into my appearance. The house gets a little messy. You don't have to fix everything right now, but take a long shower, put on an outfit that makes you feel good, maybe apply a favorite fragrance if you like that. Find a place that you can think as clearly as possible right now. Grab a notebook. You could do like your dining room table and set up a cute little setup with your favorite mug and a nice candle. You could go to a park with a cozy blanket or a coffee shop. Wherever you think you're gonna feel the most like ready to begin something new, like you're meeting yourself, This is a special occasion and it's all for you. So just make it feel special and cozy. Sometimes this part feels a little bit hollow. I think that's normal. I often experience that, but this isn't the part where you feel better, This is the part where you're starting to put in the effort and you're pushing the boulder up the hill right now, It gets easier and this is the first step. Remind yourself this is a ritual, not a performance. This is not a time where you're preparing yourself to be consumed. Like, this is really for you. Focus on your own gaze, the gaze that you have to meet in the mirror every day, not like this idea you have of people looking in at you. I mean, take pictures of whatever you want, but I would wait until you're done with the process to share this with anybody. I think the ideas of other people perceiving you can really distract you from like what you want. What we're here to focus on today is what you want for yourself. I love to say that privacy is the biggest luxury. Dolly agrees. Let this be a private moment. Really savor that like moment of being in your own world and be present in it. I think it's really important. Avoidance has been the root of every significant spell of disconnect I've ever experienced in my life. It starts because a feeling or thought I don't really want to deal with comes up. I ignore it, I avoid it, and then next thing I know, like the fault lines have spread and they're everywhere. And all of a sudden, I feel completely disconnected because I've been so avoidant of so many things. Everything is so connected, and I think it's hard to control where the avoidance starts and stops once you kind of enter into that realm. And so that is kind of what this step is about. Now that you're all dolled up in a beautiful setting, so we're just gonna get right to it. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself the following prompts. Where in my life do I feel abandoned by myself? And this can be maybe like the way you show up in your habits, in your relationships with others or with yourself. It's really important during this part that you don't censor yourself or like defend yourself to yourself. Just let like the wounded part of you inside speak. You really need to just let it out, because if you don't feel your feelings and let them be heard, they will fester. No one wants that. Some examples of things that I have written down before like vaguely relate to people pleasing, time management, not giving my body proper rest. Be as detailed or as specific as you like, as long as when you look at the list you know what you're referencing. that's your business. Once you've exhausted the first prompt, it's time to move on to the second. And so for each of these list items, you want to ask yourself, what am I avoiding and why? Like maybe you feel you've abandoned your dreams for your career. And then so when you really get into that, it's like, what am I avoiding? Perhaps you're avoiding a conversation about how you'd like a promotion with your boss. Set the scene like you're overworking yourself. You do not feel appreciated. The job is not fulfilling, but you're so avoidant about asking for this promotion you know you deserve. Why could be you've invested so much into this that your sense of self feels like very inherently tied up in the way others perceive your professional competency. Maybe even you have sacrificed other things in your life, like your identity outside of work or your hobbies outside of work, to focus on this, and you're not getting what you feel that you should. The reason that I think someone in that position is afraid to ask for a promotion is ultimately because we're afraid to feel a bad feeling. It's not really the outcome. And I think realizing that that's the case in most scenarios is so important. We have to feel our fears. And by avoiding our fears, everything comes to a halt. The truth is that in most cases, asking for a promotion is not going to result in you losing your job or financial security. What happens is you receive an unignorable truth, like right on your table. That feels bad because once you know the truth, you have to make a decision and you have to act. And not acting feels like it's not a decision, but it absolutely is. And we don't want to have to make a decision. And we don't want change, because change is the most terrifying thing to the human mind. So often it's very human, but we will reach for a familiar misery over and over again instead of reaching towards an unfamiliar joy, because it's scary. We don't know it. Some of you may have experienced this, but you finally get something you wanted and you've never had anything like it before. It doesn't feel comfortable. It's difficult to have good things that you're not even used to in many cases. This is an important time to remind yourself that you are capable, you are adaptable, you've lived through things before, difficult feelings, difficult outcomes, and challenging times are the greatest opportunities to increase our capacity for wisdom and for joy. The key, though, is that you have to stay with yourself in these moments. You can't abandon yourself again, So think about the places in your life that you are reaching for a familiar misery over something new that could be much better. It's time to get a little analytical now. We hold beliefs that we're not necessarily aware of right off the bat, but by looking at our habits and the way we move through the world, we can kind of parse out these beliefs. I think a lot of these beliefs are things we pick up in childhood and are not necessarily things that we want to identify with. And in many cases, these ideas and beliefs can hold us back. Thinking of the second step of part 1, make a list of these avoidant behaviors or habits you have. Perhaps you used to love to do a 12-step skincare routine, but lately you feel proud of yourself secretly if you don't fall asleep in your makeup. Think of these things that used to bring you joy and now they just seem like the biggest chore in the world. Say thank you to yourself for the care you've given yourself. Say thank you to that routine or habit that used to bring you some sort of fulfillment. But the second thing you need to do is to give yourself permission to simplify. Some weeks I home make my butter. I infuse it with herbs I grew in my garden, and I make meal after meal from scratch. Those are awesome weeks. I feel great when I do that. But also there are weeks I buy my butter at the store, which is a perfectly fine thing to do. And then I put it in my box mac and that's my dinner. That's okay, because we're not robots. If you expect yourself to function like a robot, you're going to shut down like a robot. It's better to focus on consistency above perfection. It's about showing up at all, not showing up perfectly every day. You need to have a more dynamic relationship with your goals. Be realistic with yourself and see where that takes you. It's okay. You can always go above your goal. If you're constantly setting an arbitrary standard for yourself that you can't meet, it's going to make you feel worse. It's going to hurt your self-esteem. It's going to hurt your sense of self-trust. And that's not helpful. I know that a dramatic change feels like glamorous and impressive, but that's not really what it's about. True meaningful change usually happens in like mundane, unglamorous, day after day, tiny steps of work. Sometimes the biggest periods of progress in your life begin with admitting your own limitations and going from there. It's okay to not be perfect. Another example of this is this video. I made a video saying I was coming back to YouTube a few months ago, and then I just got overwhelmed because I had this huge idea that was much more complex when it came to like editing and structure and research, and that's what I wanted to be like my first video back, but just too much for me. I needed to do something like this, a little more straightforward with editing and structure, in order to, get back on the bike. And I'm excited to put this video out still, but I'm happy to be working on this one first. You've got to meet yourself where you're at. What you want to do with this list of routines and habits that are like a little, you've been avoiding or are avoidant, whatever, you have two options. You can do one, the other, or both. So with the skincare option, you could do both. So for example, you're going to ask yourself, like, what was this doing for me? Why do I need to do this? And there are obviously things we need to do, like eat, bathe, etc. But you have different needs, like sensory, health, mental, spiritual, like whatever, So identify that need that you're meeting, and maybe, sure, skincare partially, like, you're putting on sunscreen, you're taking care of your skin and like preventing skin problems. But, maybe you also really enjoy the tactile, luxurious experience. So if you're just like bored with skincare, then scale it back. That's fine. Go back to cleanser, moisturizer, sunscreen, maybe a serum if you feel like it. But maybe now is the time to get into like super luxurious bath experiences. You curate the music, the candles, the essential oils, and you create a beautiful, relaxing experience for yourself once a week, which is honestly a little bit easier to do than a huge skincare routine morning and night. So just work with yourself. Don't expect yourself to be the same person forever. It's just not how we are. Again, you're gonna want to have a list of hobbies, and then you can either simplify it or replace it, do both, or honestly, you can just scrap it. Maybe you've tried to be a Pilates girl and you are miserable. You hate Pilates. Try kickboxing, try dance class. Like, it's fine. Moving forward and deciding to be someone new and like releasing things that don't fit anymore is not a disservice to yourself. Like, you can cherish who you were, who you used to want to be, who you are, and who you're becoming all at the same time. And it doesn't invalidate you. It's all still a part of you, but you're allowing yourself to evolve, which is crucial. Something important that I do want to say is that when you are feeling lost and disconnected, as you may be, since that's the theme of this video, this is not really, in my experience, the best time to make a bunch of new purchases. Yes, you're making a new routine or getting a new replacement hobby that feels more aligned, but I love to shop. I even love when marketing feels really targeted sometimes. I'm not here to say it's all bad. When you're vulnerable, that's not the time to delve into whether you're like a Glossier or Road girl or whatever, I think in the world we live in, it's really easy to conflate consumer behavior with selfhood, and that's not what we're trying to do right now. So anything that's going to bring any type of like conceptual clutter into your identity, I would avoid right now. In my experience, once you kind of get things going, nothing puts a halt to personal momentum faster than existing in an environment that just has like an ambient shame. Clothes you haven't fit into for 2 years that you just like keep in the front of your closet. Why? The textbooks from the tumultuous semester that you dropped half your classes. The investment skincare device that you swore you would use daily, but you never really prioritized the time to use at all. I feel like the items I'm talking about. You look at them and you just think like, oh, I let myself down. I don't follow through on things. I never get to that. I'm not capable of doing that. You don't need things that make you think those things in your environment, in your home. Look around your space and make sure you don't have any items that are just bringing you down and making you feel bad about yourself. And I do include digital spaces in this. So I like to collect various apps like language learning, closet archival, meditation, like habit, hobby apps. And once I kind of fall off on using one, every time I see it on my home pages, I feel like, oh yeah, I don't do that. I'm not doing that. And it makes me feel bad. And so if you've really moved past the point of using an app, just delete it. You can always re-download it later if you want to, but keeping it on your device and making you feel like you can't be consistent is going to keep you from being consistent where it matters. Also, it's possible, this has happened to me, that there's something you dropped the ball on and you're like, well, I don't want to get rid of this. I really want to improve at this. And that's fine. But I think that getting rid of the other things you don't want is going to give you more mental bandwidth to focus on what's really important to you. So don't be afraid to admit to yourself that you want to dream differently. Like, you're ready for something else. Holding on to things that you do not find beautiful or useful anymore just leaves like a stagnant energy in your space and in your mind and body. And you want to energize yourself with things that make you feel excited and capable, not drained from the things that you couldn't or didn't do. You will feel much better once you let them go. The process of letting things go, especially if it was tied to a part of your identity, it can be super upsetting, painful, triggering, and I'm not discounting any of that. I think you should give yourself time to process the timeline of releasing certain items. Don't let things exist in your space that you don't love. Like, if you don't find it beautiful and useful and you're just kind of like hoarding stuff, which I definitely have struggled with. I'm very sentimental. Again, I've learned all of this through experience. I'm not a mental health professional. It's okay to cherish things, maybe put them in like a keepsake box, but usually something you'd want to put in a keepsake box, you feel fond nostalgia when you look at it, not like inadequacy. You know what I mean? Some people say that life is about sacrifice. It's not that I don't agree with that, but I like to put more of a focus on autonomy, because when you make a choice, you're always leaving other choices behind. But if it's a choice that you're really enthusiastic about making, that's a gift. Technically, when I take a phone call from my friend who lives far away for 30 minutes at night, I gave up 30 minutes of doom scrolling on my phone, but that doesn't feel like a sacrifice to me. It's a choice I was excited to make. It's going to nourish me more. We're never going to be able to have everything. It's true, you have to make decisions, but if you make decisions that are guided by your ability to reach for the unfamiliar joy rather than the familiar misery, then you're gonna find that you feel a lot better. It doesn't feel like a sacrifice. Obviously, there are choices that are very difficult. It's almost like a lose-lose, but I'm not talking about that right now. Also, sometimes you make a choice that you know is correct for bringing you closer to a life full of joy, but it's really painful. That's just life, you know? Like, your capacity for grief increases your capacity for joy, and to feel the full spectrum of human emotions is an incredible gift. It's difficult to go through hard times, obviously, but it brings a lot of appreciation for the good ones, and I think the heart of everything is gratitude. The thing is, when you let go of something old, even familiar misery, and you're going towards an unfamiliar joy, it's not about novelty. It can be, but I think the difference between like a really grounded decision to reach for joy versus novelty is the commitment, because novelty is just a very quick cycle. Like, you need it again and again and again. But when you do something new that you feel really rooted in, you're there for a while. And sometimes it takes a few tries to get there, but it's escapism versus alignment. And if you listen to yourself, I think you'll know which one you're seeking. Hopefully through the clutter, mental clutter, physical clutter, digital clutter that we've cleared out, you've got at least some semblance of a quiet space in your mind so you can finally hear yourself think. And now that you've got that quiet space, you've released what you used to cling to, and now it's like, okay, well, where do I go? What am I reaching towards? This is my favorite part of the process, and this is when I like to think about when I was a little kid. Like, what made my eyes wide? What inspired my sense of awe? And I think it's really important to think about the way kids approach joy and awe, because they don't have expectations for it. I think as adults, it's easy to kind of get into this mindset that's like, joy is this elusive concept that is always out of my reach, and it's not something to be grasped. Like, it's something, you leave your door open for joy and it comes and goes, you know? It's not a permanent emotion. I think it's really important to realize that, because when you're not demanding it to be present, it'll sneak up on you in like a fun way, like, boo, you know? Allow yourself to be surprised by the things you take joy in. I think it's easy to think like, oh, well, I feel joy when I like buy my morning matcha. That's great. But I urge you to move away from consumer driven things again. I know I keep talking about consumption, but I really do feel it can be distracting and kind of clutter our self-concept. And I also think it's important to realize that you can love something and not possess it. Many of my favorite flowers, lilies for example, super poisonous to cats. Obviously with this little lady beside me, I'm not bringing those home because those are toxic. A lot of flowers are toxic to cats. Does that mean I don't love lilies? No, of course not. When I go buy roses and carnations and things that are cat safe, I take my time at the florist and I look at the beautiful flowers that I can't buy and I just think, wow, it's beautiful to get to see these for a little bit. And it almost makes it more special because the temporary nature of everything is really what makes it so incredible. I think that learning that requires an understanding that we don't need to control things. And that's really hard. I'm still working on that. I guess another example is like if you love a design house, but you don't own anything from like Prada, does that mean that Prada's not your favorite designer? Like you watch the runway shows, you look at the website, like you look at the archives. No, you love Prada, but it's not accessible. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that you don't enjoy that thing or that designer, you know? It's like we don't need physical proof in our home or on our body to say something about us. Like if we know that to be our truth, that's enough. Well, Dolly has left and my camera died, but we're back. I think sometimes about the first bio I ever wrote for myself on a blog I tried to make when I was 19. And I remember what the bio was on the blog. It was like, hi, I'm Jessica. I love red lipstick. I always order dessert and I'll definitely stop you to ask to pet your dog. It's like not that deep, you know what I mean? But I think it's interesting to think about like, why were those the things I chose to say about myself? I was trying to signal things, you know, like I love classic but bold fashion. I will always choose to have fun when I can help it. I'm a little indulgent and I am a polite sweetheart who loves animals. That's fine. You know, it's like not bad to have a cute little social media bio. But I think what's important is that sometimes it seems like we get so used to thinking of ourselves in these terms that it's like when you're sitting alone in your bedroom, do you like know what's under that? I think it's really important to know the thing underlying your behaviors because when you can recognize it, you can bring more of it into your life. So going back to the example of being a little kid, maybe as a child you loved adventure cartoons and every chance you got you were playing with like a tinfoil UFO you made and pretending you're on an alien space mission. So then as an adult you love going to new restaurants, different cuisines, and you're always traveling when you can. There is a through line there. Like you're an open person, you're open to new experiences, you want to learn about the world around you. And it's important to know that about yourself because there are ways that you can put that in your life that don't just mean traveling and going to a new restaurant every day. Do that in micro actions. Maybe on Fridays you take a long route home, you go to a new neighborhood and go on a walk, or you always have one hot sauce that when you run out of it, you buy a new hot sauce that you've never had before. And that's not because like you're a hot sauce person. I mean, it could be like you can say that, but that's not at the heart of it. It's like recognize the patterns in your behavior that make you happy so you can make more of those habits. And then all of a sudden you've got like mundane days filled with things that really make you happy and feel fulfilled and joyful. I think it's just that we're so used to perceiving other people perceiving us on the internet that we don't think about ourselves on deeper terms all the time. That's not helpful to things like this. I like to go out. Like you could call me a party girl, but I'm not a party girl because I'm a party girl. I'm a party girl because I love to have fun and I love to connect with people. That's what it's about for me, is an opportunity to like dance, to listen to music. I love music. I love creative spaces, you know? There's gonna be a day in my life when I really don't want to go dancing anymore probably. But I don't need to abandon that. I just need to find a new avenue that's more suited to where I am at that place in my life. I think this is a really useful exercise for not like losing yourself as you outgrow things and outgrow phases. It feels really good to be confident in knowing who you are because confidence in who you are is such an unmistakable internal experience because you just do not care what anyone is thinking. Again, going back to social media, like if you post a song that you love on your story from some artist that either no one knows or no one likes, and You post that song, nobody likes it. Like, do you care? You shouldn't, because you like it and you were excited to share it. Even if people think it's annoying, why do they think it's annoying? Like, who cares? Who cares what anyone is doing, you know, when it comes to things like that? When you're just expressing yourself and sharing things that you like, do it for yourself and not to signal things to other people. It's not like I've never done that, of course I have, but you're gonna find that you feel a lot better when you live for yourself. You will know the difference between performing and just like having a silly little time being yourself. Even if that identity is true to you, when you feel like you have something to prove to people, it just doesn't feel good. So learning to get that validation from yourself is so crucial to being able to navigate times like this when you feel lost and to get back on track. I think like knowing yourself intimately is one of the greatest gifts that you can give yourself, because then you can choose a path that feels aligned for you. I wouldn't say that I'm a super happy person. I mean, I am, but underneath that, I would just say I'm a really grateful person. I'm really grateful for all of the experiences I have and all the lessons I learn and how it allows me to wake up every day and make the choices I decide to make. That means more to me than like feeling good. Feeling authentic to myself matters more to me than feeling comfortable. At the end of the day, this is not about grand changes. It's certainly not about expensive ones. It's about like tiny, simple ones that are gonna just infuse your days with the things that make you personally happy. And when you can stay in touch with what brings you joy, you stay in touch with yourself and you're reminded who you are. And as I get older, this happens less and less because I learn more and more about myself and what feels aligned for me. So like we were talking about, find those through threads of like the things you loved as a kid and the things you love now, and let them guide you back to yourself. Let them guide you back to what behaviors you can do daily, decisions you can make that'll bring you joy, and let that remind you who you are every time you make that decision and feel that sense of joy. I think joy is a good thing to kind of form your identity around because it's not so individualistic. Things that inspire a sense of joy or a sense of wonder are things you can build community around. I don't think that we should think about what makes us different, whether that's special or isolated and other. I think it's really important to think about what we have in common with people. That also is special. Like what connects us is special. And the fact that we are not like alone in this world is an important thing to pay attention to, because we're all so connected and we do impact each other. And remembering the connection that we have to each other through things that inspire these very human emotions is an important part of your identity as a member of a community. Being a part of a community is fulfilling. Like, I'm not going to cite the studies, but there's plenty of evidence that we are social beings. I don't think that our identity should just be focused on individualism. I think that our role in our community and our connection to each other is a big part of who we are. And it's really important to acknowledge that for the betterment of ourselves and for everyone else. And I am a believer that we owe each other quite a bit, actually. I know there's a lot of like self-reflection in this video, but I'm not advocating for selfish behavior. I think that doing this work for yourself will make you a better friend, partner, community member, coworker, whatever, sibling, I don't know. I just think when people know who they are, they can move through the world in a much better way. We've gone over quite a bit in this video. This last step is really just about remembering everything that we just did so that you don't just like close your notebook and go back to autopilot. Some of the things I like to do, I'll either make a summary of what I wrote down in my journal on a new piece of paper and keep it like on my desk or in my nightstand, and I try to look at it in the morning or in the evening, at least like once a day ideally. Checking in with yourself at least once a day. Journaling can be very helpful for this, obviously. I like to do the morning pages concept from The Artist's Way, which I do need to finish that book. Even when I'm not journaling, I try to just like take notice of how my body feels when I am engaging in these habits that I said are avoidant. The two options of talking on the phone with an old friend who lives far away or doom scrolling on your phone. You can pay attention to how your body feels when you put down the phone at the end of each of those activities. When you hang up the phone with your friend, you might feel lighter, you might feel giddy, like you might have an energy in your body. When you doom scroll on your phone, especially if you're not auditing who you follow, it's very likely that you feel like drained. You might feel just like it feels like you've dampened your own mood and your own like mental clarity. I think that noticing how these behaviors make you feel the next time you go to do that, you'll go, oh, remember how I felt? I didn't really like that. And so when you don't check in with yourself, it's easy to not notice how bad you're making yourself feel. And then all of a sudden it's like snowballed. Also, I hate to do a disclaimer. This is not me like dismissing mental health condition. Drinking a glass of water, talking to a friend, going on a walk, whatever. It's not like, this isn't about fixing your mental health. I think that you can struggle with your mental health a lot, but learn how to feel aligned and in touch with joy. It's not going to take those things away. That's just part of what life is like for you or for me or for whoever. Everyone's different, but I'm not here to tell you that you can like fix mental struggles with your mind alone. Some people maybe have that experience. That's not my experience. But I will say that even when I'm really depressed and I look at my cat and she's so cute, like that brings me joy. And I do think it's in my control to notice how cute my cat is more often. Last time I looked at Dolly and gave her a little pet on the head, I felt a little better. Not that, just a little bit, but if you can just make yourself feel a little bit better, why not do it? It's temporary. It's a fleeting moment of joy, but it is a moment of joy, and I try to be present in those moments of joy. I guess that kind of goes back to the autonomy thing. Like, I think autonomy is so important to stay in touch with in your life. Our brain can go on autopilot real easily, but the truth is, like, you can take the autopilot off. It's more work, obviously, like it is when you drive, but it's worth it. That was a little bit of, not off topic, but back to the steps. I have a habit tracker app called Strides that I like to use. Not sponsoring this video. It'd be great if they were, but you can download that and check it out if you'd like. Lastly, if you are fortunate enough to have anyone in your life who you feel safe enough to talk to about everything you kind of explored today, I really recommend voicing what you've realized. Nice to have a formal accountability partner, but I think even just speaking these things out loud to another person makes it feel more real and increases your likelihood of committing to yourself in that way. And when you make things feel more real, it is scary, but it's good. It's important. It's that unfamiliar joy that we talked about. So I guess that kind of concludes my 6 steps. I am not an expert, so take what applies, leave what doesn't. Thank you guys so much for going on this little late summer reset journey with me. Applicable anytime you feel like you need it. Doesn't have to be late summer, but I am grateful for you for being here. I would of course be delighted if you would like, subscribe, and comment if you have anything you'd like to tell me or had a good experience with this video. If you had a bad one, I guess you can tell me that too, but I hope it was good. Thank you for staying till the end of the video. Take care of yourself, and I hope I see you soon.